What's going on, everybody? The TheAireaidLord is back for another Season 9 vlog. The last Season 9 vlog ever in this series for Season 9 vlogs. After this, I'm going to do normally titled videos when we do topics that predict towards Season 10 and just talk about The Walking Dead in general, okay? So, this is a review for the season finale of Season 9, Episode 16, The Storm. And it had a very different feel. I can already predict that a lot of people probably aren't going to like this episode because not a lot happened. It was anything you could predict other than the final scene, okay? And there's two things you probably couldn't predict. Negan having kind of a redemption moment with saving Judith and the dog, and then the radio voice that we hear at the end. That I'm going to have to listen back to hear like, who that was, what was being said, kind of thing. And those are the two moments. Like, other than that, you probably could have predicted a lot of the things that were going to happen in this episode. Which, because after seeing episode 15, you could say to yourself, okay, they're going to travel from one place to the next. They're going to be very, very sad. Everyone's going to be moping around, talking about their feelings, nearly just, blaming each other. Like Alden was blaming Lydia at one point. Ezekiel was getting angry at Daryl at one point. And so that you could predict that. Now, the snow, at least the snow added some new stuff, because if the snow was not a factor in this episode, it would have really changed the nature of the whole episode, because the snow was the enemy. Like the Whispers, they never encountered the Whispers once in this episode. It was the snow. It was the snow that they were encountering, battling it. They had to go to the sanctuary of all places to camp out one night, which I thought was pretty funny. Even Negan said at the end, he's like, well, shit, I could have told you that place was belly up. Negan, oh my god, I love that sequence with the hot love quadrangle. Because, I mean, you gotta think about Negan. He's been in that cell for years. And the only people he really talks to is Michonne and Judith. So the fact that he was talking to, Eugene, Rosita. I like that moment between him and Eugene where he's like, oh, like, I miss working with you, Eugene. And Eugene's like, can't say the same. It was awkward because Eugene was the reason that Negan was defeated a year ago in the last finale. And so it was interesting to see them talk. It was interesting. It was just cool to see Negan talking with characters he hasn't spoken with in a long time. Rosita, Sadiq, Gabriel. It was really cool. It was really cool to see. So the main point, I guess the main areas of this episode, and one thing that I really liked, I mean, you could see like the major performances of this episode were Lydia and Negan. Those were the two big performances, and they were in totally different locations, because because Lydia goes, there were two different times she broke away from the group. And the first time, she is by herself for an extended period of time, and she is looking at this zombie that's trapped in the ice, and it's just gnawing its teeth, and the scene goes on for a while. The music builds up. She takes off her glove and raises her exposed hand over towards the mouth of this gnawing zombie, and you're like, during my reaction, I was like, don't do it. Like, what are you doing? And it's like, I can accept, of course, because we've seen characters deal with grief. They talk to each other. Like Carol and Daryl talk to each other. Carol's like, every time I see Lydia, I see Henry. They were talking things out to try to get over this immense loss. And seeing Lydia dealing with it, almost committing suicide, just, it gave me a flashback to, does anyone remember in season 6 when Abraham was, before he gets the RPG, there's a soldier zombie that's hung on a piece of fencing, and he goes over to it and he's like yelling in its face, and he's almost like tempting death. He's tempting death, tempting this walker to jump and rip his face off and kill him. So it reminded me a lot of that, to be honest. It reminded me because back then, Abraham was still dealing psychologically with the loss of Eugene's mission, because his whole being was surrounding the mission to get Eugene to Washington, and then it turned out to be a farce. And then Lydia's dealing with guilt. Like, not only does she feel sadness for losing her lover, basically, but then there's also all 9 other people, the 2 highwaymen guys, and then all the other Pike victims. Like, people could say because of her, they lost all those victims. And you feel for this girl because she's saying about herself, she's weak, and it's like the fact that she's still standing amongst them and toughing this out makes her strong. And she's quantifying weakness by the ways that her psycho mother always ingrained them in her head. And I just felt for her in this episode, and they faked me out. I was angry about that. The fake out where Carol sees the walker behind Lydia and goes to kill it, and I thought Carol was actually going to kill Lydia. I was like, please don't. But yeah, I don't know. I wish the conversation between Carol and Lydia at the end had a little more, like, I wish they hugged. I wish Carol had some more comforting words, because she did have some comforting words, but I just wish more was said where Lydia really poured her heart out. And she was. I think I was looking for a tad bit more. And the scene was done really, really well. For me, I just wanted an extension. I was like, let me see some more. Because it seems like once Lydia goes to the hilltop and then when she goes to Alexandria, it seems like she's feeling much lighter, especially in that scene where they're all having a snowball fight. RJ, Judith, Daryl, like the music's all happy and fluffy, and it's giving you hope that this is a new beginning, and then this isn't the end of things. So, they did tease that they had to go through Alpha's territory to get to their homes. But as far as this episode goes, it didn't have a consequence, is the only thing. And that final scene between Alpha and Beta, I thought that they were going to discuss, like, yeah, we saw them cross our territory, now we're going to destroy them. Like, that would have been like a holy shit, I got to watch season 10 kind of thing. But Alpha more berated herself. Like, she is, talk about people dealing with the aftermath of things. She's still dealing with the aftermath of losing her daughter and her daughter rejecting her. And it's interesting because Lydia sought Carol's, understanding and the understanding of the group and the coming togetherness with the snowball fight and being in a happy environment. Whereas her mother literally needed her henchmen to beat her with a stick to feel like she's strong. And we are shown finally where those injuries come from, where the marks that are all up Lydia's arm that we saw in episode 10, that's how they were formed. And her mother receives the same treatment, and that's it makes me angry at their way of life, them, like, nothing about them. They're just pure antagonists that just need to be dealt with. And obviously we saw them in that episode where they were watching the group walking because they don't want to fight them. Obviously, if there's going to be a fight, there's no way there's not going to be a fight. There's going to be pure retribution for what happened at the Pike scenes. But I was asking, and I saw in my reaction a couple times, I was asking this question: how do the Whisperers survive the snowstorm? Because we see what a toll and how taxing it is for the group that's going from Kingdom to Hilltop, and then the Alexandrians who are trying to watch the dog, just move to different houses. The freaking chimney almost exploded because it hadn't been used in so long. I just was thinking to myself, like, the Whisperers, they don't have homes. They don't have heating. They have less heat sources than our survivors do. So what, did they just find some big cave and they're all hiding in it? Because I don't know, it's not that I needed a scene. I guess you could just assume that Alpha was smart enough to scout out the region. And she does say I'm glad they brought that up in the previous episode. She says to Ezekiel, can I have a coat? I can tell it's going to be a hard winter. So we did have a little bit of foreshadowing that Alpha was aware that it was about to be very cold, tumultuous conditions out. So at least at least we see some foresight on her end. But for me, it's just like I'm thinking like all of the struggles the group is going towards, and they have the technology, they have the radios in the houses, and they're struggling to deal with this storm. I was like, well, these whispers, they don't have any of that. They walk around dead skin, have used trees for cover. They're more susceptible to the freezing cold, and they don't have, you know, change of like, seriously, they're just filthy animals. And I don't know, I guess like an animal, I suppose they hibernate, find caves or whatever. I guess for the whispers, it would make more sense for them to live in a southern area where it's warmer, I suppose, because I don't know, snow just seems like a odd thing for them to deal with, but not for me to get hung up on that. We gotta obviously talk about. Oh my gosh, dude, Negan was killing me in this episode. Like as I mentioned, the freaking love quadrangle thing. And then I was so interested. And I want to get you guys in a poll here. I'm not gonna make like an official poll, but I'll just poll it here, and you can comment below. Like, do you accept Negan now? Is he redeemed? Is he redeemed in your eyes? Because not only did he save Judith, who is Rick's and Michonne's kid, but he saved Daryl's dog. Like, he saved something of vital importance to two people that he threatened to kill, had them on their knees. Daryl, he subjugated to being a prisoner at the sanctuary. For me to see that, I was just like, oh my gosh. Now, I saw some people complaining, well, when Judith ran off, why was Negan the only one who ran after her? Maybe they thought that Judith could handle herself. That was my first intuition. And it was kind of surprising that no one ran after Negan, because Negan's a prisoner. So, like, him running off on his own, I was surprised. Or maybe they just figured that it's a storm, he's not going to get far, there's nothing he can do. They just said, fuck it. I mean, I do kind of understand people's gripes. That was a little strange that A, nobody ran after Judith, and that B, no one ran after Negan. So, I mean, but the thing is, they wanted to paint that scene where he is alone, he takes a nick to the knee, like that debris hits his leg and cuts him open. I mean, and then this guy puts her against the shed, and he's giving her the coat off his back, like making sure she doesn't freeze to death. And it was so cool, because they've been building up their dynamic all season, literally since episode 6, when she was asking for math problems. She let him go. She had Judith talk to Michonne like Negan's not like that anymore. Their dynamic is one of my favorites in the show, like my absolute favorites. And they have that funny line between each other where they're like, hey, language, and then Negan got to say it to Judith, because Judith swore, and Negan's like, hey, language, young lady. So he is literally like her father in some ways, because obviously Rick's gone and she only has Michonne as a mother figure, and Negan's kind of like the father figure in some strange way. It's very odd to think about that, an ex-villain having this role, but they've painted this out for him, and I'm interested to see where they take it. So that's got to be the highlight of the episode, really. For me, it was just, as a big Negan fan, it was just really, really cool to see him have that heroic moment. And yeah, I'm interested. That's like the thing that came to mind. I was like, oh, but people still don't like that he killed Glenn and Abraham, because especially Glenn. There were so many Glenn fans, and you could look back. I mean, even last week's episode when Alpha piked all those villains, Negan was trending on Twitter, and I was like, why is he trending on Twitter? He's not even in the episode. And sure enough, people were asking him to kill Alpha, and I was like, wow, like, I didn't think people would go from hating this guy to asking for his support, but I suppose that's his arc. That's how he was written, and that's what I was looking forward to, and that's why I never ever truly hated Negan to begin with. Maybe because I knew some of his comic storyline, but they've changed it up. There was no Judith, and it was a little different. He had a dynamic with Carl, but things were different. So, but I'm just hella glad that they stuck to redeeming him in some form, keeping that arc the same. So awesome stuff. So I guess Negan does know about the Whispers then, and the common enemy thing. I don't know if he's gonna get involved. We'll have to see. There's gonna be a lot of prediction videos to make. I won't talk about everything here, because I want to make individual videos to fill the off season time for you guys. And so that'll come in the form of it. But man, that scene, there were just the two scenes that hit me the most. I guess three was the Lydia almost killing herself with the walker and the ice, and then the Carol Lydia conversation, which I wish was a little longer, and then Negan saving Judith and the dog. That's yeah, those were my highlights. And then the funny moments with the jokes with Negan. But yeah, there was meandering around, and I get it. They had to travel. You had to feel the loss. But this was like, imagine if season 5, episode 10 was like a finale. I mean, this episode didn't fit the role of a finale, other than the last couple of minutes where we had everyone settled into where they were living, and it seemed like things were going back to the way they were, and they were just ignoring the Whisperer's existence, and they had acquired Lydia as a new member of the communities. That seemed to be where things stood when the episode ended. And then we also had that voice on the other end saying, is anyone there? It seems like she was saying that. She's like, hello, it was scraggly, and she's like, is anyone there? People who haven't read the comics will have no idea. Maybe they think it's Rick. I was actually curious if it was Jadis's voice. I was thinking maybe it might be Jadis from, if she's with Rick. Like, I was hoping for some type of sync up there, but I couldn't, like, the voice wasn't clear enough where you could distinctly say it was. I'm going to say it didn't seem like Jadis is in fluctuation, so I'm going to say that it's not Jadis. I'm going to say it's somebody else, but it's interesting if they are teasing the Commonwealth, because the Commonwealth isn't even like, their arc's not finished yet in the comics. So for me, like, I can't, at least when the comics dealt with, like, the Whispers, like, they're dealing with the Whispers right now, and I know how they end in the comics, and I don't want them to end like that, because I thought it was a really crappy way that they ended, and I think the show can do a much better job. That's something going into season 10 we'll talk about in other vlogs, but I hope that they do a better job with their storyline. But if they're introducing the Commonwealth, having these little radio fireside FDR kind of chats, there's all the introductory stuff with them that Kirkman's written so far, but he's still releasing comic book things about this group, and it hasn't ended yet. I mean, it's getting into a war period, sort of, but I don't know. The show's catching up to Kirkman's books, is all I'm saying. Like, because he was always comfortable knowing that his comics were kind of outpacing the show, which he's been happy about. He didn't like the fact that, he criticized George R.R. Martin for letting the show overtake his books, and he's been proud that his comic hasn't done that. It's like, well, dude, the show just possibly hypothetically teased a group that you haven't finished their arc yet in the comics. Just put that in perspective for a minute. It's interesting. It's interesting to think about that. It kind of gives me a little bit of a smile, like, like, the show's catching up. Like, I mean, what, are they going to put a whole bunch of filler in season 10, and then Kirkman's going to be like, hold on, I got to release a couple more issues every month? I mean, I don't know. We'll see. So, all right. I'll make a separate video about the radio, but in terms of a review, what do I give this episode? I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't know if I give it anything above an 8, because I gave last week's episode a bad review, even though it was a good episode. People thought I was blinded by the Pike victims, which maybe in the moment I was kind of frustrated, but I was just trying to piece it together logically. So let's see. I don't know. I'll give it a solid 8, I suppose. Like, I feel like, again, like, the meandering was necessary. Like, I think it was a necessary evil. I know people don't necessarily like it, but I think in this instant it was necessary, because there needed to be the salty aftermath, if I'm going to use that term, the salty aftermath of what happened last episode. And it needed to end on somewhat of a good note, because it ended on, like, oh, they're having fun, everyone's settled into their new lives. Carol and Ezekiel splitting up. Someone explained that to me. Apparently Henry dying like split their perfect marriage up, because they got together in the beginning of the season, and now, like, man, I didn't think that they would split up. Like, I thought they were married, man. And I don't know if people also, and I'm getting ideas for vlogs just by speaking right now, but do you think they teased some Carol and Daryl stuff? Do you think that they teased a relationship? Because Ezekiel had that out-of-character moment where he went up to Daryl and was like, maybe you should just leave after, man, like, blah, blah, blah. I was like, this is very un-Ezekiel-like. He's usually the leader, the wisdom guy, and now he's getting in someone's face like, yo, back away from my girl, you know, you caused all this shit with these whispers, you know, just get out of here kind of thing. I was like, whoa, like, that's kind of extreme. Like, that was another scene that kind of just, like, made me, like, blink a few times. I was like, whoa, like, that's kind of different. So that's the thing with this episode. I have to give it credit, because there were a bunch of scenes where I just was kind of like had to blink a few times. I was like, whoa, that's a cool character moment, you know, for Lydia, for Ezekiel, for Negan. I mean, there were some good character moments with a lot of characters, and for an episode where people were just traveling, albeit in snowy conditions, it still accomplished its job. So got to give it credit. So yeah, that's it for the review vlogs. This is officially the last season 9 vlog. I'm just going to have regular title names for the vlogs moving forward, so people don't think they're a part of a season. I'm not going to do like season 10, because there's no information about season 10, so I might as well just wait and kind of do that once we get like the trailer or something, you know, this summer. So yeah, exciting stuff, guys. I mean, obviously it sucks whenever we have to wait for The Walking Dead for a long period of time, but I think the show, obviously, you know, it needs a cool down. I don't think we're in the worst place. At least we have a little bit of closure on the Pike stuff, a little bit. I mean, killing the Whispers, and that'll really help for things to come full circle. Kind of like defeating Negan and putting him in jail was the way that Glenn and Abraham's death came full circle. Well, I guess for Glenn, Maggie confronting Negan and being at peace with it was the way that Glenn's death came full circle, I would say. People want to argue with me on that or not. But yeah, this was a little bit of closure, but I think I'm glad we had this episode, though. I mean, maybe I don't know what you could do for a finale, because I was thinking, like, maybe the Pike thing could have been episode 14, then we could have had this episode for 15, and then maybe something more finale-esque could have been episode 16. But I guess I got to be happy that they at least did this, because you didn't want episode 15 being your finale. You really did not want that just really heavy, sad feeling to last you all the way into the summer. I mean, that's cruel. I mean, I remember the Negan cliffhanger with Lucille about who did he Lucille. You didn't know. I'm thinking to myself, because you didn't know who the victim was, so you couldn't shed any tears. So then when the season 7 premiere happened, it was really sad and tragic, but you still had 7 episodes left of that mid-season for you to kind of munch on to get past it. So I guess I just got to be thankful that episode 15, the calm before, was not the finale, and that we had this extra episode. And if you think about it, they actually make a sentence: the calm before, episode 16, the storm. So all right, guys, thank you for watching. I will be doing many topics about all of these things: the radio, Carol and Ezekiel's end of the marriage, lots of different things, and I'll probably try to have one at least every Sunday to fill the gap of The Walking Dead. And if you guys have suggestions, let me know. I'm always open to that kind of stuff. And yeah, this is until October, I suppose, for the season 10 review vlogs. In addition to the reactions, we'll sign off on that note. So I'm glad to kind of be back in the swing of things. I resumed a lot of this consistency for episode 12, and even doing it for not even half a season was still kind of reinvigorating and cool, being able to do this with you guys. So I'll miss it. I'm not going to have, obviously, anything. There's no predictions or anything because there's nothing to predict for a Tuesday vlog. So I'll try to have something new for you guys moving into the next couple of episodes. So, all right. I will see you all later. Peace out. Thanks a lot for your support.